Welcome to the OpenHearted Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the OpenHearted Podcast. I'm your host, Will Wheeler, and today I've got a special co-host guest, Sophia. Sophia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, not unfortunately, Photon John's actually on tour. So for this week, we were like, hey, look, can we find someone else to come on? And, you were the first to come. So, Sophia, what's going on anyway?
Oh, look, it's been pretty exciting. The last time we spoke, I was working with NeuroEmploy, and I'm still doing that. And there'll be a couple of announcements soon in terms of what we've got. Cool. Working with Barb is obviously the best thing ever, and we complement one another's strengths, which is great. So I really do feel like with this whole topic.
Yeah, cool.
Get some thoughts on that too.
Cool, fantastic. Well, who better to have on as my co-host? So yeah, like I was saying to everyone, Photon John is away on tour with his band. So if he's listening in, hello, Photon John. I hope you're having a good time. I'm actually going to be catching up with him tomorrow in Sydney. So that should be cool. So hopefully we get some cool photos. Also, too, I'd just like to thank, we've actually been doing a fair bit of marketing through Facebook and all that. So if anyone's listening through there and has been connecting with us, thank you so much for connecting. But I tell you what, we should get stuck into this. So today what we're going to be covering is leveraging ADHD strengths and challenges in entrepreneurship. So let's get our main man, Vincent, up on the podcast here. We'll just get you there. Vincent, how are you, brother?
Yeah, not too bad, Will. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Sorry, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I forgot to ask you that when we were getting stuck into everything.
That's quite all right. It's actually Phan. So just like a fan. That's how I pronounce it, anyway. So yeah, Vincent Phan.
Cool. I thought that was how it was, but I was just like, oh, I forgot to ask him. And there's been a few times where we've had people come onto the podcast and everything, and I just stuff up people. Being dyslexic, I am the worst at doing people's names. But I tell you what, awesome to have you on board. Now, for everybody listening, right, this sort of podcast sort of came across not accidentally, but like, so what we were supposed to do, so on Monday of this week, we were meant to have the podcast, and I was like, oh my God, it was actually Easter Monday, and we celebrate Easter here in Australia. So obviously that's a public holiday here. And I thought to the person, no, that's not fair for the person who we're going to be interviewing on that day. So we've changed them to, I'm pretty sure it's the 24th. But Vincent and I were actually going to have a meeting anyway on today at this time. So I was sort of like, why don't I just hit this dude up and see if he wants to make it a podcast? Because a lot of the time when I'm catching up with other neurodistinct people, I usually think to myself, damn, man, why didn't we just turn that into a podcast? So we normally talk about heaps of crazy stuff. So Vincent, thank you so much for coming on short notice, but I think this will be a really cool topic.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. Look, was actually looking forward to have a chat with you today, and what a better way to actually do it on this platform. So thanks for having me.
Not a problem, my man. So before we do get stuck into this, I might do a little bit of housekeeping. So for anyone who's out there listening today, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media platforms. We're actually on TikTok now, so yay. All right, so we've got a few videos up there. So if you're a TikToker, please I'm pretty sure you just like stuff on there. But if not, you can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And please also, too, we also have our OpenHeartedSociety.com website now. So please feel free to check that out. Subscribe to our mailing list. And also, too, if you want to listen to this as a podcast, you can check us out on everywhere where podcasts are available. So let's get stuck into this. So before anything, also too, if there are people listening while we're going through this, if there's any questions, feel free to, post them through while we're going and, just make it interactive and fun. What do you reckon, Sophia?
Sounds really good. I think the few people seem to have really good backgrounds as well that said they'd come. So we'd love to hear what you have to say as well.
Great. Fantastic. So more than anything, you've heard enough about me today. Vincent, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, my man.
So you want the short version or the long version, guys? Because I've got,
look, mate. Look, let's just go with the flow, mate. Whatever works best for you. We're all good, mate.
Okay. I guess it kind of started with my parents. Well, my parents were refugees from Laos, and they arrived in France in 1975, and arriving into a completely different country with nothing, they had to kind of rebuild everything. So naturally, they went into business, right? They took their chance at entrepreneurship, and somehow they had me along the way. And I remember back then we were living in this tiny studio apartment in a commission flat. I think it was 25 square meters or something. And I remember very clearly during most of my childhood, my parents weren't around very much because they were obviously working very hard to give me a chance in life, right? So naturally, I sort of immersed myself into books. And back then, we didn't, there wasn't much on TV. And it took me a while to realize that I wasn't the social type of kid, right? I liked to stay home, and I felt very comfortable being home because I could be myself. And so I started reading a lot of books, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, sci-fi stuff, Isaac Asimov, and essentially because my parents were out there working all the time, I ended up finding guidance and morals in books, right? Whether it is the balance between good and evil, or how to be courageous, how to always do the right thing, and how kindness, being kind always is the right thing to do. So I grew up in Paris, and I was a terrible student. I repeated many year levels, and I was just a terrible student. I didn't really understand why, right? I couldn't focus at school, and wasn't that I couldn't when I got homework, it just didn't interest me at all. So in growing up in commission housing, you end up trying to seek fun as an ADHD person. That's what people always do. So I ended up hanging out with the wrong crowd, and my parents decided to move the whole family to Laos in 2005, and my life completely changed when I moved there. I just started realizing how lucky I was. By the way, Laos is a very poor country, one of the top, 10 poorest countries in the world. So moving there opened my eyes on how lucky we are to have education, and so I did a complete 180, and I started studying very hard at school, and Ended up, graduating to second top of my year level. I was shortlisted to go to Oxford University. Didn't get in, but ended up here in Melbourne, and that was 14 years ago. So I moved here 14 years ago. And I kind of chose the safe route for my career. So I took I studied business and accounting. I joined a Big Four firm and a Big Four bank, and it was great experience, very stable career. But I've always felt like there was more to life, and so I left my job and took a leap of faith, and I pursued this venture to help companies become more sustainable. That was at the very start of the sustainability boom, right? And then one thing led to another. I built an app to help people deal with food waste at home. So most of my businesses were kind of around helping people and sustainability. And all these businesses completely failed. Royally, like that. It was, it was. It
wouldn't
crazy,
be entrepreneurship if it didn't fail, right?
Exactly, that's exactly right. And the thing is, right, a lot of people, think that you start a business and all of a sudden it just works and that's it, right? But entrepreneurship is very much, like you said, Will, about failing and doing it better. So my experience with that was that I met so many people doing, pursuing all these ventures, and one of them asked me to join his company, gave me some equity, and told me, look, Vinny, you're going to be the sales guy, and I'm going to do the tech stuff. And it was an education technology company, so we were gamifying. So we're teaching kids how to do coding through Minecraft, through robots, and we're gamifying the whole process. And so I grew the company, exited the company. The company got purchased by another Chinese company, and I did okay, and I decided that, okay, that's it. I'm going to focus on things that I'm truly passionate about from now on. And I started writing. I started a few blogs. I studied philosophy. I returned to school to not study just business things that would be practical, but I started studying things that truly fascinated me, like philosophy, anthropology, and some of my blogs blew up. One of them being a science communication publication called Outer Space magazine, and another one that currently has like 500,000 followers or something.
Wow.
So yeah, it made me very happy to pursue things that I was truly passionate about, and to actually, get, be able to live off it, right? But what was the most interesting part of my experience? It was at this actual time of my life. It was then that I got diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and how I got there was really strange, because I was just reading stuff, and I was like, doing all these tests, this personality test on Facebook and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, hang on, that's really strange.
That sounds like it's me.
I feel like me and you will have a very similar kind of life story. Even me not knowing you very well, I just feel like we're brothers. Like it's, it's like I see you and I'm like, we've got a very similar.
Yeah. I think it's
path,
funny.
So.
I think it's funny because what I normally find is when you meet, especially in the neurodiversity space, even without meeting people, just with like, I don't know, even like we've only just been communicating through text, you can sort of tell that someone's sort of similar or on the same wavelength as yourself through text a lot of the time. Do you find the same?
I totally agree with you, man. I think, like and the opposite is the same as well. Like sometimes, you text people and you're like, oh, when it's just not, it's not working, right?
Oh yeah, you're like,
but
man, this guy's a bit of a dick or something like that. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, I think that's, and it's so strange, and I wish I could explain it, right? But it's just so hard to explain just through just a few texts and a profile picture. It's funny how you can just tell that, okay, that person's very genuine, is very kind, and he's I'm
just gonna butt in for a sec because I remember when I first met Sophia, right? And I remember so we met, we're connected on LinkedIn and all that, but I remember Sophia going, oh my God, you're nothing compared to what your picture looks like or something. Do you remember that, Sophia?
Oh no, what I said was no, that wasn't actually correct. What I said was, oh my God, you are just the nicest guy, and I can't wait to actually support you, because you were presenting at NeuroEmploy.
Yeah, but I just because I don't know, it sort of came across to me that you're like, yeah, it was you were expecting something different.
Well,
that was my opinion anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the ADHD brain not necessarily communicating.
Could have been.
But I mean, it was just so much fun working with you, and I think that's the part of this that I think is incredibly important. Surrounding yourself, even in business, with where technically it's meant to be cutthroat and everything else. Surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and having really good understandings of what each person's doing and their contribution really makes all of the difference, I think. And I'm just wondering, Vincent, whilst you were going through this phase of discovery in your entrepreneurial journey, did you have a day job? Like, was there something actually also funding your pursuits as well? Because I think that's a really important thing to mention.
Yeah,
to entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, so pretty much what I did was I saved a lot of money. So I saved heaps of money through my corporate jobs. So pretty much what happened was my first venture didn't make any money at all. So I was burned through 15 grand just trying to get it, off the ground. And I remember I was like, oh man, that's like half my savings, what am I going to do? Then what was very hard was to tell myself, as when you get into a venture and you pursue it and you put a lot of money in it, which is a huge chunk of your savings, you don't want to give that up, right? You don't want to tell yourself this is not working. So what happened was I had to tell myself to some extent, okay, look, I need to cut this. This is great. Made a lot of friends. Now on to the next thing, and having limited resources actually is a great way to be responsible with your entrepreneurial journey. Because,
and can I say as well?
Yeah.
It's just, sorry to cut you off there. When you've got limited resources as well, I actually found that you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot of new skills because you have to, because you can't afford to pay someone to do that. So you're like, man, I've got to actually try and figure out how to do this myself. I'm assuming you're the same.
100%. And I feel like, not having, a lot of resources had to, I'm sure you're the same, where you're doing your own design stuff. I'm the same too, right? You're doing your own, marketing, you're doing your own everything. And all this is skills that are transferable from one venture to another, but not only from one venture to another job. Just in case a venture wasn't working, you could that becomes a skill that you can sell to a company, telling them, look, I've learned all these things, I can do all these things. So no, I totally agree with you, Will. But going back to how I was able to move from one venture to another was essentially taking this huge leap of faith, and truly believing in what I was doing, but also knowing when to stop, right? And moving to another thing. And that's the reason why I joined this company, where when one of my friends told me to, he's like, do you want to be the director of business development for this company? I was like, I have no choice. I have $0 in my bank account, right? So thankfully, he gave me some equity, and I was part of the business. Essentially, if I hadn't put in, all my savings in all these ventures, I would have never met this guy who, brought me onto his company, which we sold for a good amount of money, and then which allowed me to return to university and do things that I'm truly passionate about, right? So, I mean, money is everything, because you can meet people without having, much money. You can just go around to networking sessions. I think if people like you, they like you, right? But it's, I think going into entrepreneurship is, you need to have a bit of savings. It's kind of like gambling, but gambling on yourself. Right? So
it's funny you say that, because it is like that. It is like gambling almost, in a way, right? And for a long time, and I think the hardest thing I sort of find with entrepreneurship as well is that people don't see the hard work you're doing. They may see that your business isn't at, it's not a big business or something yet, or it's not a big name, or you're not bringing in millions of dollars or whatever like that. And a lot of the outside world sees that as like failure type of thing. And it can be really difficult, because you're putting everything into that. And when you're, I suppose, not seeing return, it can sometimes be heart-wrenching there. But in saying that, I've learned that sometimes return isn't just the financial side of things. Return could be that I've made a great connection with this person, or for example, now I get a lot of really big name companies reaching out to me because apparently I'm the neurodiversity guy. Do you know what I mean? And that's from years of busting my ass, going and doing a lot of stuff for free back in the day. I don't do really nothing for free these days, because I've worked my ass off to get to that level. And it really depends. I would do free stuff for like my friends and all that type of stuff. But, I've just learned so much from that. But yeah, it definitely feels like it's gambling, because you don't know if you're going to get that money back or not. And man, I could probably have bought a house by now with the money that I've spent trying to build businesses, which have failed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, Will. It's just scary, right? That when you look back, you're like, oh, how much money have I spent on this? What have I done? But at the same time, like you said, I mean, look, Will, you are the diversity guy, and when I connected with you, I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm friends with this guy now. And it's legit. Like I was like, wow, this is great, because I'm pretty shy with my neurodiversity, so I don't, and when I saw, I stalked you a little bit, and I was like, wow, this guy is really out there and making an impact and helping people. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I would have never thought that, even without going into, if I didn't go into business, I would have potentially never met you. And that's the benefits, right? That's the great thing about doing things that you're passionate about, people see it and people want to be associated with it. And even though, you do, like you said, I mean, we all do things for free, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not, but at the same time, it's, even if it's not, it's a lesson, right? So,
Totally.
So yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It is like gambling, but at the same time, you'd rather gamble on yourself than anything else, right? Because you know yourself best, and yeah,
totally. So we've spoken a lot about your journey, a lot about a lot of the work you've done, and to tell you the truth, I'd like to speak to you after this podcast because there might be some cool things we could bounce off each other if that's okay. Putting you on the spot. But what do you love about entrepreneurship? There's got to be some really there's negatives to it, of course, but there's some real positives to it when things are going good as well. So sorry, what do you love about entrepreneurship?
Oh, what do I love about entrepreneurship? So, I think for me, it'll have to be the creative journey, right? I've just noticed, Sophia, is that a piano behind you?
Oh, this is a fake background, but
is this a fake background? It's so good these days. It looks so real. The reason why I was asking was like, oh wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful piano. The reason why I was asking was because I've always been a bit of a creative, and I sing, I play instruments, and I used to professionally sing at bars, and I used to be a busker on Burke Street while I was studying to make a bit of money on the side and paying for nice meals, and that was my way of getting pocket money, right, and doing something that was creative. But also when I was in France, I was always involved in the graffiti scene, right? And back then, graffiti wasn't cool, right? It was something completely. It was criminal stuff. So, so I was, I did that for years, and it was my way of. Now that I look back at it, it was my way of to express myself, and so I've always been creative to some extent, and to me, the reason why I love entrepreneurship is that it allows me to create something that is commercially viable, but to start from an idea, right, and to pursue it, to build it, to bring people on board and to convince them that it's got value, and then once I sold the idea to other people to come and help me do this, I get to sell it to the world, and that thing that I've created and ends up in all these different places. And to me, that is what thrills me, right? To give birth to a business idea and to nurture it and somehow give it wings to become this bigger than the sum of all the people involved in the business. So it's just this creative.
Can I say something onto that, right? And I totally agree 100%, because even with business, it's the real little things sometimes that really excite me. Like you said, creativity, right? It's like you're talking about painting, and I say this a lot as well, is that it's like we're artists. We've got this idea of what it is. We just need to put it into practice, and you sketch it out, you sketch out your painting of what you want it to look like, which in other words could be a business plan potentially. But then all the other little things come together. So, even designing, say, the logo is a real big deal for me, because I think the logo, for example, is really saying what this company is about, type of thing. Even like your mission and, values and vision and all of that type of stuff, you can really sort of go, wow, you know what I mean? And then being able to bring that together and build a team around that, it just seems to be like, I don't know, it's the best feeling ever. Do you know what I mean? That's my feeling of it anyway.
No, I totally agree with you. Well, it's really hard to describe. It's very hard to describe this feeling. But giving birth to something that wasn't anything, and then somehow it becomes this thing, and like you said, it and that thing is an extension of yourself. That's the best part, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a wonderful feeling. So I guess here, what about like you will like? Is that something that's like that's very important to you, that creative journey when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. There's definitely the creative journey, but the thing I love more than anything is definitely my team. The people I have around me, because I can only bring so much to the table, right? And even with OpenHearted, like, sitting down with the team and that, and when we talk and all of that type of stuff, just sharing ideas or even hearing ideas that I never even thought about. And you're just like, wow, you know what I mean? That's what I really love. That's where it's like, man, I really couldn't see myself going in any other direction, because I just love that. More than anything, I so love when I've got an idea and then I put that to the team, and then that idea goes into, it's like a tree. It starts from this seed and then grows out to this thing that and it will be the idea will be completely different to what it started at, but that's what I love. You know what I mean? And I sometimes feel that, and I hear this a lot within the neurodiversity community, that a lot of us, we've got these creative minds, and then when we've been working in workplaces and all that, we've gone and shared those ideas with our team or our managers, and then a lot of the time they blow them off. So working in, I suppose, an environment where there are no limits, that's where it's really cool. And that's the way I view it. And maybe other people view entrepreneurship a little bit differently. Sophia, how do you sort of like, maybe we're coming from a different perspective to yourself, but it'd be interesting to think what your thoughts are.
Well, it's really, I can totally relate to you, Vincent, when you mentioned that your parents were migrant parents, because I come from a first generation migrant family. And when I think back, I was involved in the business literally from the age of 2. My parents owned a fashion fabric business. So my creativity was actually coming up with Sophie's collection, which was a series of drawings where I'd have like fabric swatches. And I had this dream of actually starting my own fashion label. So that was, and it was all meant to be princess dresses and everything else. And so that's where my creativity started. But then when I think about my parents and the choices that they made, they were entrepreneurs, but they also took on this business out of necessity. So I saw, a mechanical version of entrepreneurship, if that makes sense, where the whole family works really hard. You all have to contribute to the business. There can be real pressure as well to actually follow in the footsteps of the family. So, the first kind of step in terms of building a level of assertiveness around, what it was that I wanted to do was actually telling my parents that I did not want to take over the fabric business. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at that stage. And so I went, like you, I went on this pathway. I called it the Whitman's sampler stage of my life. So you know how there's a box of chocolates and it has just different chocolate flavors. It's one only. You try it, you see if you like it. You don't like it, you go for the next chocolate. So I literally called my time the Whitman's sampler stage of life for me. So that was a journey of educating myself, because once I finished school, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. So I actually started working for in the offices at Coles supermarkets and saw leadership from there. And then I moved on to seeing leadership in the Vice Chancellor's office of Monash University. So I had this really, without even thinking about strategy, governance, leadership, I was lucky enough to actually see all of that stuff. And I kind of feel like that's the neurodivergent brain where, we witness and we observe all of this stuff because we are people watchers. I feel like we are. We learn from the people.
Oh, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And so there's a point, though, where there's a penny drop. I find that in my creative process and in my sort of interest in having frameworks, there's a penny drop moment where I say, oh, now I understand why the Vice Chancellor always said hello to me by name, despite despite the fact that at that stage I was an admin assistant taking the minutes in their committee meetings. That's why, and I was really lucky to have another person that I reported to as well. And seeing that leadership style just ignited that interest. But the critical thing for me, after having observed my parents work so hard and unfortunately not be satisfied with the work that they were doing, like they were making money, they were supporting the family, and that was what migrant families did. It's like work hard, save, at that stage deal in cash, try all of those things. So having seen that example, I think in the back of my mind, I've always sort of thought, you know what, I've seen someone just taking a simple route and not being happy. So I'm just going to give everything a crack that I actually, really do find interesting. So sorry, I feel like I've just hijacked.
No. That's actually interesting to hear. I think it's important to hear that, and I think it resonates so well with what all of our journeys have been. I think the biggest reason we've probably gone the directions that we have, especially around entrepreneurship, is maybe things aren't the way that we want them to be. So we've gone out and created it ourselves. Yeah. I'm assuming you're probably the same, Vincent?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Sophia, it's such an inspiring story and a relatable story, I think, because what inspired me to go into business was at first I never wanted to do that because I saw my parents working tirelessly and I didn't see them very often at all. And when I saw them, they were kind of cranky, because they work so hard. So to me, there was, So to me, it was like, oh no, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to, get a stable career and do some cool stuff, but I can totally relate to that. I think it's going into business. It's some, one day, I think people that they're going to business and do really well, they just, something happens in their brain. They're like, oh, hold on. Okay. I love this thing so much and I can't stop thinking about it. Right. And then, nothing that you do can, unless you actually pursue it, nothing you do will make you happy. So I think that's why I sort of changed my mindset about it, because I was thinking about, okay, there's a better way to do business and all this stuff. So, but yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, Sophia. That's really,
and do you know really what, right? Do you know what, right? In regards to that, and this is probably a neurodistinct thing as well, that I don't know, like, I don't like being like everyone else. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I was younger, I would dress and I'd try and do something that was a little bit different from everyone else, right? And I sometimes see how, and look, there's nothing wrong with this. This is just me personally, but a lot of people, get a stable job, probably well-paying sort of job, get married, have kids, get a mortgage, buy a house, all of that type of stuff, and then so forth, where, sometimes for me, business especially, I've had to sacrifice all of that type of stuff, right? But I like what I do. I do feel like I'm different and I'm able to create the person I want to be type of thing. So I suppose that's the way I look at it anyway. But what we probably should get onto is, you've spoken a lot about, your business, your journey as well, all of that. But what are your strengths regarding your ADHD? Because I know for myself that, there are certain things where I'm like, whoa, I'm doing some really great things here. And then there's other times where I just don't have those strengths compared to others, So for you, what are those strengths regarding your ADHD?
Look, I think, there's a lot of things that we were very good at, right? For example, hyper focus, right? You've got this problem, or it doesn't even have to be a problem. It could be just this thing that you're super interested about, and somehow, you're in front of a computer for hours. You don't even eat, drink, whatever. You just for hours until you're sometimes you don't even want to go to sleep, right? You just want to figure it out, and that's the only goal. I mean, and I think that's something that ADHD people, if they're fortunate enough to be in an environment that supports that, is amazing for entrepreneurship, because running a business, you run into problems every single day, right? There's new problems coming in that you never realized that were problems, and you need to think about how to solve these things, and being able to hyper focus and think creatively about how to solve certain problems that you're not qualified to solve at all is very it's pretty crazy, right? But at the same time, I'd say having ADHD, I think you're probably the same, Will. You're pretty curious, right? Like you're interested in a lot of different things, and even if I had the money to hire a designer, right, I'd actually want to learn it myself, because it's so interesting, right? And it's not only just about the money. It's just, wow, like you're creating these things out of thin air, and it's just so. I think being so curious about the world is a good way to acquire different skills, because you see this, you see that, and you're like, oh, I wish I could understand it. I wish I could do it myself. And so I guess being curious is yeah.
Can I just say on that, right? Like what I've learned, right, is that you may sort of go, oh, I'm curious and I'll try and do that myself, or you try to learn about it. But there's some really let's take say the tech space, for example, right? And I was actually speaking about this with someone on Monday. And I think what a lot of people don't understand with, especially technology, for example, is what's required to build, I don't know, let's say an app, for example, right, that's going to do something. People think, oh, yeah, we'll build this app and we'll be able to do this and have all these great ideas. But once you start getting behind the nuts and bolts of what's required to do that, man, there's a hell of a lot involved, and you can see why these tech companies need millions of dollars to be able to build that technology. And I think for myself I wouldn't call myself a tech expert, but I've done some coding courses and all of that, and it was good to be able to go, oh, crap, there's actually a hell of a lot involved with this, but and I can see that I'm probably not the man for the job to be able to build something like that. But now at least I have an understanding of what is required to build that, if that makes sense.
It's interesting because I think as of ADHD female, which there was only a recent diagnosis, and then the penny dropped as to why I spent quite a bit of time actually feeling inferior in my journey. So it's taken me until now to actually, and that imposter syndrome thing, I won't go into it, Will, but I know you did have a wonderful podcast about that. There was a period of time there where I actually didn't feel like I could achieve. I was achieving, but I just kept on. It was that perfectionist in me where it was like, could have done that better, or hang on a second, why am I doing this? Like there was a period of time there, and the narrative that I grew up in, and there's also the whole concept of intersectionality. Having grown up in a European family, there were a lot of things that I was told I couldn't do because I was female. So I couldn't play, girls don't play soccer. So I became the vice captain of the girls soccer team, and girls don't play cricket. So I became vice captain of the girls cricket team. And so I spent a big part of my life, masking. So trying not to show that I felt inferior. Like I'd observed so many conversations and also was inspired. This is the thing with the people that I think we're very much the same, Vincent and Will, where the people around us inspire us. We're learning from each other. That spirit of collaboration is just so important. And, I really love LinkedIn for that. It's a really great, that's how you and I met, Will, essentially. Vincent had the pleasure of actually looking at your bio and just having, this whole, this really big level of professional admiration for you. But from a female's point of view, it's the masking, the perfectionism, and that perfectionism really did make me, and because there was this pressure to be academic as well, it made me really understand finance. So now I've got an understanding of finance, but I'm following my passion in neurodiversity. And when I was in high school, I was the shyest girl. I was the person sitting in the corner just doubting myself the entire time. So and now look at me. Now I'm actually lucky enough
You're killing it.
Having a conversation with you amazing people.
Totally. No, and that's the thing. There is, you said that we're talking about imposter syndrome on not the last podcast, but the podcast before that with Dr. Matt. And don't get me wrong, I sometimes still feel like I'm not at the level that I'm at, but like you said before, Vincent, that, you saw this information about me and you're like, wow, man, this guy's killing it or whatever like that. Man, I don't even feel like I'm there yet. You know what I mean? And, that's probably because we do hold such high expectations and, but I think that's just the way it is from meeting people like yourself and so forth and all of that type of stuff, So, it is hard, but, we do face challenges, and I'm sure you were talking about it before in regards to business. You get people coming to you with challenges you never heard of before, especially being, ADHD, it's actually quite common that we are very creative thinkers, right? How have you been able to navigate a lot of the challenges you've faced?
Well, it's funny you guys talk about imposter syndrome, because I think for me that was the biggest one, right? And I think it's also, it comes from, growing up as well, because you're, I was when I was in school, I was a terrible student. So teachers would always, go, hey, look, if you don't study, you're not going to amount to anything, right? Or if you don't, you need to be, stop being lazy, stop being, all the standard blaming and the standard shaming, right? And so so to me, that, obviously all this was taken in, and now I feel like, every time I do something, I'm like, oh, how dare I do this thing where I don't know what I'm doing? But at the same time, it's a good thing, if you know how to use it well, right? Like, because I mean, without doubting ourselves, we wouldn't be, if you were so sure of yourself and you're like, oh, I'm the best thing ever, you'll never grow, right? So,
yeah,
I mean,
totally.
you know what I mean? So like,
Totally.
I'm doubting myself with doing this thing. I better learn how to do it properly. And even if I don't get to, we're probably all perfectionists, like you said, Sophie. But if you don't try to achieve perfection, you'll never get close to it. And I guess, some bad things can be good things, right? So it's a matter of, and obviously, the environment has to be right. But the other thing I get that I really struggled with was rejection sensitivity, and especially doing sales, right? When I was first getting into sales, I'd be so scared of being said no to, right? I'd be like, oh, but it was just so scary to me that people wouldn't accept me for who I was, and especially being from a certain ethnicity. I was bullied when I was a kid, so that stayed with me as well. So I was always like, always looking for attention, and whenever I wouldn't get it, it would really scare me, right? So being into business, expecting people to like you and expecting people to buy your stuff was something I struggled with, because when you sell a product, a lot of people are going to say no, especially if it's a product that hasn't been tested, that you don't see on billboards and everywhere, right? So, I mean, most of my calls now, most people say no to, and I still struggle with that. But at the same time, it's become a challenge now, because if they say no to it, I think about it. I'm like, oh, okay. So if I worded it in a different way, or if I think about things to improve about myself, and be better at sales, and be better at influencing decisions, and again, rejection sensitivity is very hard, but at the same time, you think about it, you're like, okay, what do I have to do not to be rejected? And that, you become creative, right? You're like, oh, okay, so if I say these things, or if I portray myself, or if I show this thing in the right way, then I won't be rejected, and that becomes a self-improvement thing, right? What do you think? Well, do you go through the same stuff?
Yeah, well, sort of. It's been interesting because, when I first really broke into the neurodiversity market, if you're going to call it that, there really wasn't a neurodiversity market there. Do you know what I mean? So I was going into a lot of events, like D and I, was mostly called D and I back in those days, going back about 7 years or something like that ago. And, I was stepping into a market there that no one knew what neurodiversity was, or they just weren't interested, or whatever. And, that's hard within itself, because for one, neurodiversity, and there is a lot of maybe bias towards, people like us and all that. So, there was a lot of that when we're talking about rejection sensitivity dysphoria. That was hard to take, because you're feeling that, well, in my head, I was thinking, oh, these people don't care, or they think I'm an idiot, or something like that, right? But I kept grinding. I kept grinding at it type of thing. Now, what happens a lot of the time is I'm not even going out and making the calls anymore. Do you know what I mean? People are coming to me which is awesome, because apparently I'm the neurodiversity guy, you know what I mean? But that's from years of busting my ass and going to networking events, putting myself out there, being rejected, being made to feel that, what I was trying to work towards would never be a thing. Like I remember I even sat down with one guy one time and we're talking about dyslexia and he's like, look, I don't care what anyone says, dyslexic people, yep, they're lazy. You know what I mean? And I felt like throwing my coffee in the dude's face, you know what I mean? But I held my ground. I was professional, all of that. Now the thing is, neurodiversity is growing. It's only going to get bigger, right? Because what's happening is there's a lot of these top people in high-as positions who are neurodistinct, and they're like, hey, yeah, this is me. Let's start bringing this on board. It's starting to become this almost cool type of thing, right? Not that I like to refer to it like that, but it's sort of like if a company doesn't get on board with this movement, they're going to get left behind. So who are they going to go to? They're going to go to the people they know. You know what I mean? And that's from where I've been grinding a lot of the time, which has helped along that sort of journey there. So it's definitely been hard. There's definitely been a lot of challenges. And yeah, man, I've learned a hell of a lot about what not to do. I've grown so much that, yeah. And look, like I said, I'm no millionaire or anything like that, but there's still time to go yet. I hope so, touch wood. You know what I mean? So yeah, lots of stuff like that. But I tell you what, right? Like, going on from that, why do you think many neurodistinct people thrive as entrepreneurs? I know myself, but what are your thoughts on it? Oh, you want to answer that one, Sophia?
I'll let Vincent answer that one, but if I can be second speaker, I would
appreciate. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, okay. So I'll go first, but please share everything after. Yeah, I'll be very quick anyway because I think sorry, which question was this again?
So, why do you think many neurodistinct people thrive as entrepreneurs?
I guess, for me anyway, and I think I've heard similar stories with other neurodistinct people, is that, when you're young, you obviously go through some adversity, right? You're either bullied or, people see you as different and they don't really understand you. So they're just not going to accept you, right? And so a lot of people see it as a personal mission to sort of, prove people wrong. And that comes from trauma, right? But for me anyway, I've always wanted to prove that, I could help the world, and I had a place in the world, and I always wanted to, as corny as it sounds, I just wanted to help people solve problems, and a lot of, if you think about, I think Elon Musk came out as he announced that he had Asperger's. And similar story, he was bullied heavily when he was a kid. And but another thing as well is, there's this theory, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it, and I'm not 100% sure that it's entirely accurate or it's been proven scientifically. But a lot of people see ADHD people as the remnants of hunter-gatherers, right? And if you really think about it, I mean, business people are quite adventurous, and we get bored very easily, right? We just want to, go out there, go on an amazing journey, and if we settle somewhere for too long, we get bored, and I guess that translates well into entrepreneurship because I mean, when you're in business, you always got something new to deal with that you've never seen before, and that keeps it interesting, and that makes it an interesting journey, and in itself it's quite an adventurous journey. So I guess look, that's my 2 cents, but I'd love to hear what you have to share, Sophia.
Well, I think there's what I've now, upon reflection, what I've realized is one of the key things I've found, and I don't know if we talk enough about it, is the resilience that we have. We've for such a long time, we weren't sure, we were fumbled. Like, no doubt, everyone's fumbled and stumbled to get to where they are now. Like you said, with the ventures that you had and how we responded to that. The interest in being a learner always made me look for the why. Why did this not work out? And so that spirit of inquiry, I think, is one of the reasons why entrepreneurs are as good as they are. There's normally an intense interest as well within that space. So, I have to learn everything about this, and that takes you down this really sophisticated, and I hate to use this word, rabbit hole, right? Where you're just trying to find all of this information, learn more about it, and be really good at understanding it at a minimum. The other thing, so that resilience piece and that drive for learning and understanding why has also helped me now recognize that when I come up with an idea, my brain will go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I will be like typing frantically, putting everything down, dot point, dot point, dot point, dot point. And there's a point there where I just go, oh, hang on a second. Now I have to take a step back and figure out, how am I going to communicate all of this to someone that isn't necessarily 5 steps ahead like me? And that's where the understanding diversity and how people learn and everything else is critical. I also think people respond very well to frameworks, and I'm a structured person when it comes to the way that I approach business. So, but the other part of the learning piece in terms of not having that self-understanding was I'd naturally looked at ways of relieving stress when I was going through it. So I feel like that's been one of my saviors, yoga, mindfulness, negative ions, if anyone's looked into that, nature.
And you're dead right there, because I just find sometimes I do just need to get away. So even just going for a walk, or even like sitting down watching the football I went to the football on the weekend with my friend, right? And that was like almost therapeutic because it got me away from everything. I was able to just have a good time. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sure you agree with this, Vincent. Entrepreneurship, like you said, we could sit in front of the computer for like days without forgetting to eat and all that type of stuff. If we don't, take time out for ourselves, we can burn out big time too.
Yeah.
Cool. You know what? We're pretty much run out of time. But I tell you what, we've had some pretty cool chats here. This is what I mean. Like, just having a random chat and jumping on, it's just, we've just pulled something out of nothing, you know what I mean? Almost like starting a business, right? But you know what? Since, you've been on here, where can people connect with you and find out a lot of the work that you're doing, my man?
LinkedIn is probably the best. So LinkedIn, Vincent Phan, Phan. Send me a message if anyone wants to chat about anything that I've talked about, or about books, about philosophy, about anything really. I'm always happy to have a conversation with someone who's interested.
You don't have TikTok or anything like that. You're not there dancing in front of it.
No, I'm not cool enough. And people.
Oh, mate, mate, that's your RSDs coming out, mate. You're very cool, man. You're very cool.
But I do have I do run a few blogs on Instagram. One of the one that I'm most active on is called 1000 Libraries on Instagram. It's beautiful pictures of bookstores, libraries, and essentially I'm trying to inspire people to read more and to visit more libraries and bookstores. And it's a beautiful page. If you're interested, have a look. 1000 Libraries, but otherwise LinkedIn, Vincent Phan. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. It's been so good to hear about your story. Sophia, thank you so much for stepping in for the main man. I know those were some pretty big shoes, but you filled them pretty well. So thank you so much. Look, I think it's awesome what you're doing, Vincent. It was fantastic to hear about your journey, and you know what? I think it's really cool that we're connected, and I can see we'll probably have a lot more conversations to go. What do you reckon, mate?
No, I totally agree, mate.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for everyone who's been listening today. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media platforms. Please check out our website, openheartedsociety.com. And if you'd like to listen to this on the actual podcasting streams, we will be available on any podcasting platform available. My name's Will Wheeler, joined by my guest co-host, Sophia, here with the main man, Vincent Phan, and this is the Open Hearted Podcast. Till next time.